So here's the great panther escaping from Nanaboujou, and here's Nanaboujou with the bow pursuing him. So I put those two constellations on the cover of the book. And as the years go on, the seasons go on, Nanaboujou chases after the great panther, and they go through an endless cycle of pursuit and escape. And and a lot of Nanaboujou's exploits comes from his bow and from shooting the bow. And so story after story is where he killed a giant beaver, where he killed kind of reptilian monsters. And there was a giant moose that Nanaboujou was pursuing. And Nanaboujou had actually cleared a lot of the landscape, a lot of the monsters that threatened humankind. He is the summer constellation, and it's a very clear and bright constellation that moves very low on the southern horizon. And in the Scorpio constellation, he's holding a bow, and the bow is very clear. It's an arc of stars out at the end of his outstretched hand. And then trailing after Nanaboujou is either his sash or that frog skin that he wore when he pulled that trick of shooting the great panther disguised as a frog. And in the night sky, his bow is aimed toward the great panther, although he's on the other quarter of the sky. So Nanaboujou did a lot of very foolish things as well. He heard a song and a voice coming in the night, and he crawled out of his wigwam and looked, and there was dancers in the lake. And so he said, well, I'm going to join them. So he jumped in and started dancing to this strange song and doing these strange dance moves. Well, when the sun came up, he found out that he had been dancing with a group of bulrushes. And everybody in the village had gathered around to laugh at him because he had just made an absolute fool of himself. He killed a giant moose and was going to butcher the moose, cut him up into quarters, and then sharing the meat with all his village. Well, then he looked at the moose and he said, well, I'm not going to share this with the village. I want to have this all for myself. So he set it aside and went to bed. In the meantime, the wolves came, carried off all his precious meat, and so he woke up in the morning, there was nothing left but the skull. So Nanaboujou decided, well, I'm going to try to catch those wolves and get my meat back. So he changed himself into an ant, climbed in to the skull, and then took the skull down to the water and started swimming across the lake. Meantime, the hunters saw these antlers going across the lake and decided, look, a moose, let's go get it. So they jumped in their canoe, and these two hunters shot arrows into the skull, and the skull shattered apart. Nanaboujou suddenly had to turn himself into a human again. And there he was, soaking wet, swimming away from his fellow hunters who realized that it was him inside the skull.